What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fye and Eric Sheets Haber. We are back. The NBA is back. We're ready to do this. I'm looking for 3 years in a row. I've either won or chopped the big one the last 2 years. So trying to make it 3 years in a row with all the new sims and all the new styles of everything. So gonna try to figure that out. But I'm pumped up for the season, and we're gonna do our best to do the best we can this year. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we start talking about these games and everything?
Yeah, I do. First of all, we're going to see if this kind of continues, but it seems as though FanDuel is making kind of a commitment to kind of get their product back. That's just kind of what I hear. They so we'll see. We'll just see what happens as far as the contests go. The other thing, again, we should probably talk about content a little bit. Maybe we'll do it a little more before tomorrow. It's the first big huge slate, but I guess you could just kind of count on something like this, like a 12 o'clock kind of preview of what's going on. And then like a 6 o'clock or so, live before lock thing. Now, again, we're, going to be competing with a lot of other content for that, but that just kind of is what it is. And throughout, and from time to time, I'll do kind of a process video where I show you how to use SaberSim and do early builds and things like that. And, live sweats for the big slates sometimes. I'm definitely down for doing something like that, usually like 11 o'clock at night or so. Projections are going to be up on the site between Goldies and Mines and SaberSims. I'll just so you guys know what to expect. I mean, I'll probably put, one meaningless setup, during the day. And then, one, maybe two more closer to lock. I'm not going to be, able to do, post lock updates too much, if at all. As far as the late swap goes, again, that's kind of up in the air. If there's a day where I'm doing it, I'll just kind of fire up a live stream and show you guys how to do that. The other thing I'll mention about NBA for those who are doing it for the first time, for those who hasn't done it in a while or whatever. What's really cool about DFS, and this is why I really like it, and which is why I play like all the sports, is that every sport is different in a lot of ways. And one of the things about NBA that everybody has to remember is that it's a projection-based sport. Okay, at the beginning, all right. It's not the sport where you want to pick 10, 2% owned guys. The way results distribute among these players is very smooth. You have a minutes projection and their rates within that projection, and people's scores only go up by 1, 2, or 3 points at a time. It's not like football or certainly not like hockey or baseball where you can get 18 points with a 3-run home or whatever. So don't get too kooky with this. And when you're running like SaberSim builds or you're running projection builds or whatever, you should have some kind of sanity check that if you start to get your, projected lineup score, way below what it would otherwise be if you didn't screw around, many fortunes were lost. Not respecting how smooth the NBA is with respect to whatever. Now, again, you could certainly get edge, if you think that, you have an edge in minutes or an edge in rates or an edge in something. It's just difficult, and again, just to kind of re-stress what I said, all year, is that if you're not sticking around to late swap, you're just losing. Can you win? Yeah, maybe, but you're just losing in general if you're not around to late swap. Between the late news, the late minutes stuff, the late projections, the late ownership or whatever. So it's definitely, listen, for my money, it's the toughest sport by a lot for people that, that can't dedicate, the whole night to it. And it's tough enough even if you can. So, I'm not going to say that the NBA season is going to be easy, but, part of it, what makes it cool is that it's so challenging.
Absolutely. And then historically, the NBA has been by far my best sport. Obviously, last year wasn't my best year, but it is because partly it's hard and people don't always put in the extra work, like you mentioned about the late swapping and all that. Fortunately, tonight, at least, we don't have to worry as much about it. I mean, yes, it's still good to do for the other reasons, not for reasons that we're waiting on injury at least. That's when it gets really kind of wild. And you guys will see that after the first couple of weeks. It's going to get a little bit wild, I think. I posted on Twitter a couple weeks ago all my overall bets for the season and all of my overall pitch.
Oh, what do we got?
So I just picked all the over-unders and then all the award winners and things like that. I do have the sneaky long shot to win the scoring title, which is going to sound nuts as Cam Thomas for Brooklyn because they just don't have any other players. But he's 50-1, so he was my biggest one. And then, but mostly I went along with it. And then I was thinking about the title odds and everything like that. I actually think that it's really hard to pick against Boston right now. So I think Boston stands out. And I honestly am I think Boston OKC seems like the obvious chalk answer. But if you're going to get creative, the Knicks and Minnesota would be the other teams I would consider. So those are both playing tonight. So it should be a fun season. I'm not very high on my Lakers this year. We'll see how it goes. Hoping that I'm wrong, but I don't think they're going to be especially good. Maybe they'll start off a little better. I just don't see these guys playing 82 games. All right. So with that said, Sheets, should we pull up your screen and start going through the games?
Sure.
All right. Or I can do it either way. But
no, that's fine. I can do it. It's fine. It's not too many games.
Only two of them. All right. Knicks in Boston. And the Knicks are interesting this year. I mean, obviously with the big trade, just before and actually one of my closest friends was just at her birthday party on Saturday night. She's actually maybe designing someone in this game that one of the people in those trades a new house after they moved. So, but with getting Cat, and we all know what the deal is with Tibbs. He plays a tighter rotation than most coaches do in the NBA, and I think that's going to continue this year. There's only like 9 guys projected to play any minutes, and only really 7 guys projected to play most of the minutes. And right off the bat, I think you have probably the best value in this game with the Karl Anthony Towns, even though it's not real value. He's just a little bit, probably a little too cheap. But this certainly seems like a side you'd want to be on and hope this game stays close. But curious what you're getting so far. I know you take a look at your Sims and all that.
Yeah, he's too cheap for sure. The best point per dollar play I have on this in this game is Josh Hart. And he's actually, I have him as like the highest owned player on the whole slate, actually.
It's very likely.
Yeah. And yeah, man, makes sense. Very consistent. And if he's going to get Tibbs run, he could score points in a lot of different ways. And yeah, so I think both of those are my two favorites. We're going to see how Jalen Brunson, follows up a pretty damn good season. If you get, OG Anunoby, you get him healthy. So I think it's a decent idea to play like a bunch of Knicks here. Hope the game stays close. Maybe run it back with a Celtic or two, and if they don't keep it close, then I guess you lose. You know what I mean? I suppose. A 2-game slate, I imagine. So yeah, Towns. I'm not going to get too fancy with Knicks. I think Towns, Brunson, Anunoby, and Hart. Now, again, if you wanted to dip into like you could talk about more of these. You could dip into the into the whatchamacallit range, the
McBride,
Miles McBride.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, I've heard a lot about this. And I've said a lot here, but I've heard a lot about this Mikal Bridges, like the new shooting motion that it looks awkward, and then whatever it is. I hope they don't. I hope they don't let him go like the 12% owned that he's projecting. I don't know. I mean, if he's 12% owned, I would take a shot at that. So I don't know. Maybe I've said everybody on the team.
I think you kind of have to with the Knicks, though.
I'm just kind of flexing my I'm just getting going again here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think that I think that to start off, I was thinking like, okay, if I was setting a minimum, I think I would probably want to play 2 Knicks, but the game would have to stay close. So you might if you're betting on somehow a weird Boston blowout and something like that happens, you're probably still getting 3/4 out of the Knicks, but you certainly would look to McBride as the value. That's nothing special. He's going to be crazy high owned. But if you wanted to get the creative play from the game, which again, don't use this in a bunch of your lineups or anything like that, but I wouldn't X out campaign. He would be the guy who's on the fringe and is probably the 7th or 8th man, but it's kind of weird because they're all point guards. So I really don't know exactly what they're going to run tonight, but I wouldn't X out campaign. I wouldn't X out Jericho Sims. I also am not trying to go out of my way to play them. I like what you said about Bridges. The only issue is the price is a little high. So even if everything's fine and he looks perfect and all that, I think the reason people are avoiding him is just because of that price. But I would go out of my way to probably try and get a little bit over the field, just because you're not going to have many opportunities to do that. But the main pieces are clearly Towns, Brunson, Hart. McBride is the normal value, and then I mean, I think all 6 of these guys will be spread throughout. All 6 of the main guys for the Knicks will be spread throughout my lineups, and I include McBride in that. And that's just the way it is. It's a small slate, so we're going to have exposure to all of them. I do think that not getting too creative here outside of maybe going with a little Cameron Payne and maybe going a little bit over the field on the Mikal Bridges.
Well, just because it's a 2-game slate, and just because I'm trying to learn these players again. You know anything about the first round pick? I think it's the Pacome Dadiet or whatever. He's 3K. And if they lose by 30, is this a guy that could maybe get into the game? Just because it's 2 games. Is Okiki like actually a guy who? No, I don't think so. Oh, they waived him, so he's out.
Yeah.
So we got to see who's like actually active in some of these. But
they just don't go deep into their bench, and unless you said unless they're getting blown out, and even that is just like you're still probably getting 3/4 from their best guys, unless it's like 40 points or something at halftime, something weird. I think you just stick with the Sims and the Payne if you want to get creative. I don't think we're going to see the rookie play at all. It would be my guess, unless there's some sort of a blowout one way or the other. And even then, it'll probably just be a couple minutes.
What about the Boston guys?
The Boston side is a little bit more interesting because we obviously know who they are. We know what this team is, and I think that there's some things worth speculating on. One is, this is not speculation. This is like a normal play that I actually think you could argue that is every bit as good of a play as, I guess you could argue as good a play as Hart or as good a play as, Anunoby. Drew Holiday is in that same price range, and he's getting a little less ownership. So the focal points would be Tatum followed by White, followed by Holiday. I think all 3 of those guys are interesting. But I think that Jaylen Brown gets a little bit overlooked tonight. So I think that what I would try to do is maybe try to force in a little bit of Jaylen Brown. And I think it's worth speculating on all of Pritchard, Hauser, and Cornette. I think the Celtics are going to do the opposite of what the Knicks do. I think the Celtics are going to play like 10 guys, at least significant minutes tonight. So I want to get some exposure to that. And then there's the Jordan Walsh, the young guy. I think we could speculate with him as well. So I guess my overall take for the Celtics, and I'll try and fine tune it after doing a bunch of builds later before live. But I guess to try to be overweight some of the fringier pieces of the Celtics, because I think Cornette, Hauser, and Pritchard are all going to have opportunities. And if they play well, I do think it's early in the season, the Celtics aren't going to go absolutely nuts. And I think you're going to see these guys get minutes. So all those guys are sub 10%, and I would like to try to get to one of them. In my first look at when I was hand building, I want to get to one of Cornette, Hauser, Pritchard in all of my lineups, but not all of my lineups meaning 15, all of my lineups meaning I was hand building 3. So that was the way I looked at it. What showed up for you?
Yeah, so I think that Pritchard is kind of a good 2-way play. I think he does well in closer games. I think he does well in blowouts. So I like that. Derek White I like a little bit, and then Tatum. Those are the 3 main guys I have for Boston.
Do you know I'm going to throw one more out here one thing that I didn't mention? I think Tillman, one of Tillman or Cornette would be my early take for who could end up on the winning lineup who's sub 10%. You know what I mean? With no Kristaps and Horford getting older, are they really going to let Horford go out there and play 1,000,000 minutes on night 1? You've got a cheap Tillman who we've seen play minutes for them in the past, and we've seen put up big numbers in the past when he played for Memphis. And Cornette, we've seen play minutes in the past. So I don't know which one it's going to be tonight, but right. I kind of like the Tillman idea just because the low ownership. I know I already mentioned Cornette, but I think there's a path here for Tillman to get some real minutes in this matchup. All right, Minnesota against my Lakers, which I just hope this is the last of. I hope LeBron goes away after this year, and he's a fine, nice person and everything. I don't want him basketball-wise anymore. Anyway, to start with tonight, it's an interesting game. The Lakers are actually underdogs at home. You've got, just to fill in what happened, with the big trade, you're going to have. I think you're going to see more Julius. I mean, obviously they're going to play Julius Randle. He'll be starting, but I think the answer is going to be for them all season, and the projections will reflect this. Naz Reid is going to have a lot more run this year also. So I think Naz Reid is the clear obvious play. Even off the bench, we all know he can light it up. And my also prediction, I think Anthony Edwards finishes in the top 3 for MVP this year. And 8,800 seems like a very reasonable price. But then again, Tatum's only 9K. Everybody's affordable. So it's really just how much you want to use them. I do like the Edwards. I'm probably a little bit lower on Gobert. I don't really want to play the chalky Gobert, but I will. I'll speculate with Randle at no ownership. I mean, Randle's getting like almost no ownership tonight, and he can do some things. And he's going back to LA where he's always played great. So I think Randle's a terrific spend up to get different play. That's sort of my overall outlook. You're going to see some people playing this Josh Minot, who's going to play some minutes. I don't know if he's really going to be 25% owned like they're projecting right now. But I would stick more with Nickeil Alexander-Walker as my value. But the main piece is Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards. I like DiVincenzo, probably be with the field on him. And then I would go to Randle as my next favorite guy. I really think Randle's a good play tonight. And I am going to go out on a limb and say that I think I'll be probably end up at least double the field, maybe triple the field on him. Because like I said, not only that, he goes back to the Lakers where he was pissed to really, all bad things said about him, nothing good. It's almost like going back to the Knicks for him. So I want to take that narrative out right off the bat and play some Randle.
So I think that that Edwards, makes that next step, like you said, to vie for the MVP. I've never been a big fan of Julius Randle, both as a player and as a fantasy producer. I think the only way that I would focus on him is when he could just kind of take over games, and that's just never happening with Anthony Edwards on the court. So I'm not as much as into Julius Randle in general. A couple of other things about this game. I agree with you regarding Naz Reid. I'd much rather play him than Rudy Gobert. And the other kind of like not to say passing of the guard, whatever it is that on a 2-game slate especially, but throughout the course of the year, you're going to see like a Mike Conley project as kind of an okay point per dollar guy. He's always like kind of cheap, and you sort of on the court like a decent amount of the time, but I think that is on the downswing. And I would much rather play DiVincenzo than Mike Conley. And again, I said this before, so I'm kind of like going against what I was saying, but the projection of Mike Conley is always going to look good from like a point per dollar perspective because he's always cheap. And he'll get like 24 minutes, 28 minutes, whatever it is. But as far as like upside, I'd much rather play a guy with a little bit wider range of outcomes, maybe like DiVincenzo, maybe. Mm-hmm. So I like DiVincenzo over Conley. I like Reid over Gobert, and not to say this is the same play, but like right. I would say Edwards over Randle. You know what I mean? Like I've heard some people try to like maybe talk about maybe a $3,500 Joe Ingles or whatever. Again, if pricing were really tight, and you needed to just find these guys and say, okay, if you get 11 points, that's fine. I don't know. You get these guys like Edwards is at 8,800. He should be 10K. You have Cat who probably should be 9K, and he's like 7,700. So I don't think you needed to dip into these guys. If you're going to dip into them, I'd much rather, as you pointed out, to go without Nickeil Alexander-Walker, than to play Joe Ingles, for example. The Minot, I mean, someone else can win with that, I guess. I think he's just going to get a 0. I don't think he's going to play at all. The other guy that, again, we played a little bit last year, I don't know what it's going to look like this year, but the Jaden McDaniels, like from time to time, he would put up a game. He's a guy I prefer to play 3,800. It's like, right. I don't really like him, and that really kind of takes me to the end of Minnesota. You want to? What do you think of the Lakers?
So I'll start off with the Lakers. If I had to pick one between one of the two, I think I would give a very slight edge to LeBron to AD over LeBron. I usually go that route, and that would be my preferred way of going today. I think Russell and Reeves are both completely fine, but I don't think that they're necessarily as good a play as some of the 5K guys in the other games. I actually don't think that Russell and Reeves are that much better of a play than you mentioned. 5,100, right, for DiVincenzo on the other side. I think I'd rather just do that at a cheaper price. My hot take or whatever, I think Dalton Knecht is going to win Rookie of the Year. Zach Edey's going to win it, to be honest with you, assuming that he starts. But I think Dalton Knecht is awesome. I think he's like really, really good. I think this is the one of the few times something great fell into the Lakers' lap. I'm not even joking when I say that I think this guy could have been the number 1 pick last year, and it's such a weird draft. But he's just a little bit old, and we know who he is. But that's all great. He's going to be playing right off the bat, and I think that he's an awesome value play. It's not going to always go perfect for him, but I'm willing to speculate on it. I'll be well over. He's probably my favorite value when you factor in ownership and everything on the slate. So really, really like Dalton Knecht as the value piece, like AD as the most as the spend ups. Maybe I get to some Russell and Reeves. Russell has more upside and it's his former team, fantasy wise upside. Reeves is more likely to just consistently get there. Russell, I don't think they're going to yank him off the court in game 1, so I guess he's probably a better play tonight than he will be a lot of the year. But just wait for Dalton Knecht is going to start taking those Rui minutes. He's going to take some minutes from these guys. I just think he's really good and he belongs as a starter or at least a near starter. He'll come off the bench, 6-man, fine. The other one that's worth speculating on is Gabe Vincent. The Lakers, went out and got him a couple of years ago, or the year before last year, and he was hurt basically the whole season. Both he and then Christie, who's on the way up, I think those are the other guys worth speculating on. So I'll probably use the Lakers value to speculate a little bit more than I will on some of these other teams. I'd like to speculate a little bit with those. I mentioned some of the Boston guys, but the Lakers are the other team. I sort of want to mix in Vincent, Christie, and Knecht as my value pieces. So that's sort of my overall take. Rui can always just have a game here and there. It's really hard to project what he's going to do and win. But like I said, I'm erring on the Knecht side tonight. People are going to play Jackson Hayes some. I don't mind it because there's size on the other side, but I'm not sure that I love it either both from a Lakers standpoint and from a DFS play at the moment. I just don't have a great feel for how many minutes he gets. So I'm going to try and do a little more digging, but mostly it's going to be Knecht, Christie, and Vincent as my value pieces, and AD, probably a little bit of Russell as my other pieces.
So there are probably like 40 eligible players on this, on this slate, like 10 of each. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that I think if you tracked, how often like the announcers or whatever or the media will mention like a player's name, that the guy who's probably going to be rated like 4th or 5th in that or maybe 1st or in that thing you didn't even bring up yet. You going to play any Bronny James?
No.
Oh, okay. Because what I'm hearing is he's like definitely playing tonight.
Oh, he'll definitely play. He can have his 3 or 4 minutes, and that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, what's he going to do in 3 or 4 minutes?
I don't know what he's going to do.
I mean, he had one. He finally had one manageable game. The guy, and I'm not saying this to be a whatever. He's the worst player in the NBA. No, I mean it's a fact. But usually the guys drafted at the end or undrafted players are the worst players in the NBA as rookies at 20 years old who were not good and didn't play in college.
He had 17 points.
He had the one game in a complete. They lost by 50, so he got to play. I mean, Knecht had what? Did he have 37? I don't know.
I just figured I'd bring it up. So for the actual players though, again we'll see. Again how Knecht does. I will say that he looked freaking awesome in college last year. I mean, I was watching like that whole tournament and stuff. He's really, really good. I mean, that guy can fill it up.
He can do everything too. He's not like I just do not understand how he slid. He can shoot. He's a great athlete. He's got range. He's a good defender, long arms. Like I think I'm really, really high on him.
So what I'm inclined to think again is just try to get ahead of what who's going to make the next step forward versus who might be taking the next step back. I think I'd probably be inclined to go to sell like the D'Angelo Russell a little bit. Maybe hope that he takes a couple of steps back and I would probably play Austin Reeves a little bit more. Just to because he made some good strides last year, and maybe he's I mean, there were games where he was their go-to guy.
That's my take for the season as well, just for what it's worth. I totally.
Oh, is that right?
I just thought for tonight, Russell specifically against former team, all that stuff, he tends to shoot a lot more in these situations, and they do need some offensive firepower outside of LeBron and AD. So one of those.
But I do think that this that the first game is not necessarily going to be indicative of what the season looks like.
Sure.
It's the first game. They're playing a good team. You know what I mean? Like, I think both these teams are they're gonna put their dudes out there. They're not. I don't think they're gonna put anything really unheard of on the court. I don't think there's gonna be anything that you're not expecting. But when you were saying comparing, say, Tatum to Edwards, you weren't comparing them. You were saying Edwards you could play Tatum. I'm just never a Tatum guy. You know what I mean? Like he's so good, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as fantasy goes, like I just always feel as though Edwards can score 80. Where Tatum is always going to, for me, he's always going to score 58.
But at this price is like Tatum's almost always at 50. That's the thing.
Well, that's true. I mean, but he's always between 50 and 60. And Edwards is always between 30 and 80. It's like it's so anyway, on a 2-game slate, I think okay. What are most people? I think most people are going to play more of the Minnesota Lakers just because it's going to be a closer game. But then again, like the Knicks, they're all going to project for 35 minutes because it's Tibbs.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of if there's a way to get, unique. That's kind of the wrong way to put it. I guess the way to be different is maybe to play like 3 or 4 like Celtic starters or something like that.
Right.
I don't know if people are going to try that. By the way, have you been watching some of the interviews of this of the Celtic coach?
No, I've
he's
seen
awesome. He's just the best. I mean, he's the best.
Yeah.
I thought that Popovich was the best. And he was. I don't care about coaching. I mean, from I know
what you're saying.
Press conferences and stuff. And I guess there were just 2 different generations of being the best. But what's his name? I forget his name. I forget the Celtic guy's name now. He's such a troll. It's like amazing. I mean, it's just awesome. And he also knows basketball. So it's kind of,
I like him.
It's kind of a tough combination.
Yeah.
But yeah. So listen. Well, let's see how the Knicks look. Sure they'll lose, but yeah, listen, we'll see how we'll see what happens.
So it would be my inclination would be to actually play more of the first game tonight.
Okay.
I like the Knicks. I just think that it's really hard to get away from those minutes anywhere, and I think all these other guys will play a little bit deeper. And we already know, I think you can get away with playing less of the other games because Randall. We'll see how that changes things in there. But there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it's. Again, I want to wait, and I want to see projections tighten up a little bit as the day goes on because I do think there's some guys like Ronnie being projected for 0 minutes is just not realistic. He's going to play. It's not a question. It's just a question of how much. I don't think you want to play him.
I mean, will he play if it's a close game? I mean,
I think all you have to do is give him a couple minutes before you have the father-son moment in the second quarter. That's what you do.
Well, then they're going to waive him? I mean,
what do you mean waive him?
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to play with his father every game.
The first game he does.
Oh.
LeBron's been talking about it. It's going to happen. I would be. I mean, odds against it should be like 1,000 to 1. I don't. There's zero way he can have a 0 projection minute because you can't tell me that there's no chance that he plays tonight. It's more likely than not that he.
It's kind of like the opposite of senior night in college. It's like
right. Well, no, but I feel like he is the senior tonight. Like he's not going to start.
Right. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the finals winner here. Let's see if anything kind of stands. I can't play the Celtics and the Thunder at these prices. Let me just see what we got. The Knicks at 8-1 is a joke. All right, what can you? Well, you could get Giannis at 14-1. That's something.
I think the best odds. I think that's one of them. I think the next best one, and I'm not picking this team to win it, but I will tell you, I think they have an excellent chance to have one of the best records, and they're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs if they can tighten up a few spots. The Suns.
Ooh, see, these are the teams I want to play. Like Lakers, Suns, Warriors, Grizzlies, Pelicans, like these types of teams.
It is. Oh, the Warriors. I love. They're the one I'm really high on, and I think all it takes is one midseason acquisition. They've got apparently the
who'd they get?
Kuminga. Well, Kuminga and Moody. Well, the one thing is they're healthy. They haven't had their team, the guys together. But Kuminga and Moody are taking. Apparently, Moody is taking a huge leap, and Kuminga is taking a leap. On top of that, they got Buddy Hield to sort of spread. They've got like 10 good players. They've got good players at every position, and then they've got Steph. And I think Steph is another MVP possibility this year. I like the Warriors to be competitive and have a chance to win it. And I also think that if you're going to make a crazy bet, just make the crazy bet on the Spurs every year until they start winning them all. I'm not saying they're going to win it this year, but if they start off like 5-0 and somehow by the trade deadline they're like 4 games over 500 and like 5th in the West, 6th in the West, because it's going to be a bloodbath in the West this year. Why can't they go out and sign somebody and not waste a year of Wemby and make a run at it? I think it's possible.
Who's on the Suns now?
The Suns are Durant, Booker, Bradley Beal.
Right.
Same stuff as last year, but they seem to have more cohesiveness. And they got maybe. I mean, I like the old coach, but I love Budenholzer, who's their new coach, and their offense should click with him. If they can figure out how to run those 3 guys together, there's a way that I mean, you can't have everybody, all these 50, 40, 90 guys basically and not be competitive in today's NBA. I think they've got a really good chance to be competitive. The Rockets are a little further back than I would have guessed. That's sort of surprising. I thought the Rockets would be like in the 75-1 range, not 150.
And the Heat are always funky.
The Heat always have a chance, but the Rockets are like, there's a lot of people out there who have picked
they're 150-1.
And they have the same win total projection as the Lakers and Warriors. That's kind of weird. And they've got some.
That's true?
Yeah.
That can't be right.
43 over under.
For the Rockets?
Yeah.
And who else did you say? Who are they tied with?
The Lakers and the Warriors.
The Warriors are 43 also?
Yeah. And the Lakers are 43 as well. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
That's the regular season, but like what if what's his name actually becomes Jokic this year? The big man, you know what I mean?
Who?
The big Şengün. What if he becomes Jokic?
Oh, Şengün.
He's on his way. Jokic took him a few years to become fully Jokic, and Şengün is on his way. They've got so much talent. That's the only problem. Then they have the kid who everybody's favorite player is now, Shepherd, who was the second pick in the draft or whatever, or third pick in the draft, the first real player picked in the draft, first non-Frenchman in the draft.
What about the what was good luck? These are some. Listen, these teams can't win. I'm looking at Orlando. Like these teams can't actually win, but they can give you a sweat. I think. I don't know.
But yeah, maybe they can't be realistically going to win it, but like maybe they could.
Like, can Cleveland win? I mean,
but like what if the Magic, for example, halfway through the year, or again right before the trade deadline, they're playing so well, but they have nothing at point guard. So then they go out and they get maybe the other team that I said is an underdog. Maybe the Spurs are done with. Maybe there's we're done with the Chris Paul thing. If you give us a haul, we'll give you Chris Paul and you get a real point guard at least on Cleveland, on Orlando. Or what if they go out and get a better point guard even than that? There's a lot of moves that could be made that could improve a team like Orlando where they really do have a chance.
And I'm looking at these other teams. So what is Indiana 60-1?
That's a good one. I mean, that's probably the best of the that one with Orlando is probably the best of the ones because they have a style.
Sacramento. I mean, all these teams. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at them just as fantasy teams. Maybe they're really not that good. But maybe you're right. Maybe just play the best player. Not the best player in the league, but who's going to be the best player in the league at 150-1. Maybe, like you said, with the Spurs. Yeah. They're not winning.
No, but they will soon. But the thing is, the Indiana thing is a real point because they actually have a style. They got the right coach, and they play a different way than everybody else. And it took them to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they were banged up. I think they have a chance to make a real run this year. I really do. So I like those are the long shot teams I like anyway. And I wouldn't touch it basically anything.
Hang on, let me just do another. Let me see what all the player leaders. Let me see what you did. Points per game.
I took the crazy one.
Who'd you take? I
don't even know if he's going to be on the list.
Cam Thomas, 45-1.
Oh, it dropped a little. It was 50-1.
Dude, I have like an actual a real one. I mean, Anthony Edwards is 20-1.
He's not going to lead the league in scoring.
No.
It's possible. I shouldn't say that. It's possible. It's possible. I just like the Cam Thomas situation because like nobody else.
No, he could be like Alex English. You know what I mean? Like, and just
yeah. I mean, he first of all, he averaged 25 a game last year. Why is it so hard for him to jump up to 30 with literally nobody on his team?
How about 70 to 1 on Jokic?
He'll never do it.
He just decides that this is the year. You know,
if he's leading, he'll give it away at the end. He'll just pass the ball the whole game, and he won't do anything.
No, like just F everyone. I'm going to score 40 a game this year just to prove
the
it.
F everyone play, the one that's the crazy long shot, and it's not going to happen.
Durant or something?
No, Zion.
Yeah, but you might have to play a certain amount of games to be.
I know that's the problem, but I'm just saying, like a guy that wouldn't surprise me if he averaged like 34 and 12. Like that wouldn't be surprising to me.
How much? Listen, these are 250 to 1 shots, so I'm just going to throw it out there. You know, Joel Embiid is always like 1 play away from being out for the year. How about Maxey at 250 to 1?
That's kind of interesting, but I don't see him trying to do it that much because he's sort of running the show.
Yeah, I suppose.
Whereas like Zion will beat the hell out of you and try to get to the basket every single time. I could see that happen.
Averages. Yeah,
the real bet though for that is probably the obvious, or one of the more obvious. Is I think Giannis has an excellent.
How about blocks leaders? Wembanyama minus 450. That's like a lock.
And he's a lock for defensive player of the year as far as I'm concerned. Too.
Hold on, steals leader.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
Where's De'Aaron? Oh, he's allowed to.
Alex Caruso is only plus 14 to 1. Okay. Threes leader. Man, Curry every year. Every year.
Curry, if there's one, Simons could do it. Simons is the one other guy I would consider as a possibility.
Lillard 45 to 1? Just not anymore.
He looked great, and he's in better shape than he's ever been.
You need a Curry injury. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's too hard.
Assist leader.
This is one that has some variance to it. I think Halliburton is the obvious choice, and I think
but he's not the favorite.
I don't understand why he's not.
Trae Young is the favorite somehow.
I think that's well, yeah, Trae Young. I guess it makes some sense, but
Luka's 8 to 1. I guess not.
Luka could lead it. Yeah, well, it seems a little high.
Sabonis is the favorite for rebounding.
It's a tough one, the rebounding. I could see Wembanyama. I think that's a pretty good odds, and I think Giannis has reasonable odds.
Yeah, and scoring leader we talked about already. All right. All right. So I think we went over more than I thought we were going to. And we'll I guess we'll be around at 6:30 to go through late stuff.